Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear why efforts to resolve a stalemate over inflation-adjusted education funding fell apart. And we'll get the latest on foreign affairs with former NATO Ambassador Kurt Volker. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Arizona today cut ties with a private prison operator near Kingman. This after a state corrections department report showed that Management and Training Corporation, or MTC, had a, quote, culture of disorganization, disengagement, and disregard of state corrections policies. The report was ordered after a July 2nd riot that injured 16 people and badly damaged the Kingman facility. The report also found that MTC failed to properly train its staff and that inmates showed dissatisfaction with MTC by targeting the company's property. The report also found that problems identified 5 years ago when 3 inmates escaped the prison and killed 2 people, that those issues were again identified as problems this summer.
The state opened this prison 11 years ago this month, 2 administrations ago. And this is not the first time we've had problems there. But it is my intention that this is the last time we will see problems there. This is about accountability. Our actions should send a loud warning shot to all prison operators. Fail in your job and we will hold you accountable. Risk public safety and we will end your relationship with the state of Arizona.
MTC will also be called upon to pay for any and all damages to the Kingman facility resulting from that July 2nd riot. And a Maricopa County Superior Court judge today ruled in favor of Medicaid expansion. The judge ruled that a hospital fee to finance the expansion was an assessment and not a tax. Republican lawmakers had claimed that the fee was indeed a tax and thus needed 2/3 approval by the legislature. The judge today disagreed, and now the Goldwater Institute, which is representing the Republican lawmakers, said that it will appeal the ruling. Talks fell apart yesterday on a possible settlement over inflation-adjusted funds for education. That means the 4-year-old case involving nearly $2 billion heads back to the courts. Joining us now is Joe Thomas, Vice President of the Arizona Education Association. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
How much can you tell? Were these things ever? Was it ever close? What went on here as far as these negotiations?
Well, we're under court order not to really talk about what happened in the negotiations. So there's not a lot that I can talk about that. But we can talk about what's on the table now.
Well, and what is on the table now?
Well, we saw that after impasse was announced, where the side said that we weren't going to be able to constructively go further in the arbitration, the Speaker and the Senate President announced their plan, which takes money from First Things First and finds a couple other funding areas and tries to kind of cobble together a solution.
Okay, I do want to talk about
Sure.
that, but I want to go back to the original suit here. What was the suit all about?
Well, in about the turn of the century, the voters decided that they would mandate that the school funding would keep up with inflation until they passed what was known as Proposition 301 back then. It said many things, but one of the most important things it said was that every year we would have an inflationary increase to make sure that our schools didn't fall behind just that base level in inflation of what it costs for paper clips and for computers and for paper year to year. And everything worked very, very well until the last 4 years, when the legislature decided that they didn't want to fund that piece. And that ended up being a significant amount of money withheld illegally, we said, and the courts agreed with us, from our schools. And so that's where the suit originated from.
So the suit, and the courts agreed, I think it's like $1.3 billion was held back, correct?
Yes.
And the courts agreed, you're supposed to pay it, so go ahead and pay it. Yet there were, why were there even talks? Why was this even mediated? If the court says pay it, what explain.
Well, I think what we all want, what everybody wants in this situation, is a solution. And the idea was perhaps, get the sides to talk together, which is very common in all sorts of court cases, and let's see if we can have the stakeholders come to some kind of resolution. And what's difficult for me as a U.S. government teacher, I teach high school, is to wrap my head around this idea that we have 2 branches of government, the executive branch and the legislative branch, ignoring the power of the third branch, the courts, with their court order. It's as if we don't have checks and balances anymore, and so that's difficult moving forward, but we still think that we can get to a resolution.
And that was the gist of what I was questioning. It's, mediate, talks, let's work this out. Work what out? I mean, the court basically said, pay it.
Right.
You underfunded, pay it. So
Students in schools won, and we're looking to get that money in, and we need it in now.
So basically, this now goes back to the courts, correct?
Well, you'd have to talk to the courts about that. We'll see what kind of orders they mandate. There's two different pieces to the court case. The first was the inflationary funding. That's the one that we've won. The second one that's going through right now is all of what would be considered the back pay. That's the money you talked about earlier, the over $1 billion. And we'll get a ruling on that at the court level, and then it'll probably be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court like the last one was. But we're very confident that we're going to win again. The point is, we need to get this money into schools. It was held back from schools intentionally and unconstitutionally, as it turns out, and illegally, as it turns out, and we want to get it back in. Our students and our schools and our teachers need these funds to do the work that they were hired to do.
So when the legislature comes out and the legislative leaders come out with this idea of $5 billion over the next 10 years, taking money from state trust land, taking money from First Things First, some would call it the robbing Peter to pay Paul principle, but for what it is, it's another idea. Does that idea even matter when the original idea is to live up to your obligations?
Well, I think that the legislative leadership is trying again to find a way to meet the interests of the court case, which is fund education, and they're looking for ways that they can find it. The governor today said to reporters that he did not support any kind of tax increase going ahead, but he's also said that he supports fully funding education before, and when we really are hoping that our governor will be a champion for that, for our schools, to get the resources that we need. So the legislature, one of their plans was to sweep funding from First Things First, and teachers see that as taking money away and resources away from preschoolers and giving it to high schoolers, and that doesn't make anybody very happy. Those funds were set up by the voters as well to go to early childhood programs, and I think the courts have already weighed in and said you can't use that for something else.
And the idea of taking additional money from state trust land, and I don't know if this plan means more than the governor has already proposed or includes the governor's proposal, that needs to be approved by the voters as well. A little bit of irony there, isn't there? Your plan is to have something approved by the voters so that you can pay for something that the voters approve that you're not living up to?
Right. Well, the voters in Arizona have a real good independent streak, and they're very protective of things like state trust lands. They know that a trust is something that you should put money in and keep money in, and it pays out over the long haul. And so that should fund education, a small piece of education, since statehood and for hundreds of years into the future. And so the idea of going into it, I think, is one that people are looking at, is are we using enough of that money right now to fund education? The problem is, if you use too much of it, you deplete your reserves, and then you don't have any trust land to use, and that cheats future generations out of this really wise thing that our founders put into the Constitution.
And the new idea also continues with what already has been approved, $74 million a year. Adds 1.6% inflation, another, I think, $100 million in funding. There is a bit of a surplus. They don't want to call it a surplus, but there's some extra money or additional money floating around. Did those ideas make sense to you?
Well, getting money into schools makes sense to me, and we need to do it right now. The court case was about withholding funds from education for 4 years. I have a fifth grader at home, so he had a fully funded education in Arizona his kindergarten year and first grade year, and he's not had it since. And that's impacting his ability to have a small class size. That's impacting his ability to have after-school programs, to have PE and arts in his schools, because those are the things that get cut when we underfund our system. So the idea of going to the voters in a November election or in a different election, that'll help us in another year or maybe 2 years. We need to get money into schools now, and we have the money sitting with the surplus, $300 million, that we could put a piece of that and give some schools release. Let's get class sizes down. Let's let teachers work in better conditions where they won't want to leave at the end of the year. Let's let students learn in better conditions to where they'll advance the way that we want them to and see the student growth. We have an unsustainable system right now, and it's unsustainable because of the lack of resources. We have to properly fund our schools, and the courts agreed with us, and we want to move ahead on it.
Last question before you go. Do you understand the legislature's position in not funding for those 4 years because the state was in such a fiscal crisis?
I understand that for about 20 years we've steadily cut taxes, and when you cut revenue, that impacts the general fund, where all of education funding comes from. And that's what we're really a little nervous about moving ahead, is if we don't fund our schools now, if we don't use this money, this surplus money from this last year's budget to fund schools, what are we going to use it for? Are we going to see more tax cuts, which is just going to keep us in this vicious cycle of underfunding everything in government, which impacts our children? We don't want to see that. We'd like to get the money in there, and certainly there was no money, but that was the legislature's doing as well.
All right. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here. Thank you, Ted.
Inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an 8 Insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the 8 Insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Controversy continues over a proposed Iran nuclear deal, and Europe struggles to handle a wave of migrants from war-torn Syria and Iraq. Here to talk about those issues and other foreign affairs is former NATO ambassador and current head of ASU's McCain Institute, Kurt Volker. Good to see you again. Thanks for being here,
Ted. Thanks for having me.
I always enjoy these conversations. Let's get it going with the Iran nuclear deal. Your thoughts?
Well, we've seen two sets of generals now write letters to Congress. One set saying it's a great deal, we need to do this and push off an Iranian nuclear weapon. Another set came out today, 195, saying, no, you got to reject this deal. I would say that I wish that we had negotiated harder and held out for more, that we were in this to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, to not allow them to have an enrichment capacity. This agreement eventually gets them there, so I wish we had held out. But now that we have this deal, everybody is going to lift sanctions. The UN is going to lift sanctions. All the countries are going to start doing business again. Iran is going to follow the terms of this with these other countries, whether we reject it or not. So I think it might be symbolic if we say we don't condone Iran moving down this path towards eventually having a nuclear program, but it's not going to stop it now.
Those in support say that this does include inspections and restrictions of a sovereign nation, in this, and they would compare it to someone coming over here and inspecting our facilities and regulating us. So that's pretty important, isn't it? That that's part of the.
It is, but there's a lot of fine print around this as well. First off, we're talking about Iran, not us, and Iran's a country that supports Assad in Syria, that supports Hezbollah, supports Hamas, supports terrorism. So this is, and it's not a democracy; it's a theocracy. It's pretty brutal, and they execute people right and left. So this is a pretty rough country. So that's one part. Second, if we were to agree internationally that we would have inspections, and we did this, for example, during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. We had nuclear agreements, we had inspections. You can do that sort of thing. What was agreed here is that the IAEA would accept Iran's self-inspection of its military facilities as Iranians conducting this rather than the IAEA. So this is another step away from a very intrusive regime. That said, let me be clear too. I don't think that the alternative here is to bomb Iran. I don't think that would get us what we want either. I'm saying that we should have held out for a tighter agreement.
But for those critics who say that it does leave military action as the only other option, is that a viable statement?
Well, we have to see. First off, now that this agreement exists, I think the thing to focus on is vigorous implementation to see what happens. How the Congress votes, that's going to be people voting their own conscience about whether they want to condone this. That's their call. But in terms of this agreement actually existing in the world now and Iran trying to carry it out, we'd like to see as much vigorous implementation as possible. If we then become concerned that Iran is not following what it says in the agreement, I think it takes you back to that question. So how do you change that?
And if they don't, I've understood that the deal kind of has two separate roadways here. One is specifically nuclear and the other is other aspects. But if Iran follows the nuclear deal, and the agreement, and doesn't have any problems there, and yet we're finding them sponsoring terrorism and just doing some impossibly bad things, and we want to sanction them or punish them. There are those who say under this deal, we can't do that, or else they will say the whole thing's off the table.
No, that I don't agree with. So we have sanctions in place because of the nuclear issue. We also have sanctions in place because of terrorism. And it's been clear all along that even the administration is saying we're not lifting the terrorism-related sanctions, only those that were put in place because of the nuclear program.
As far as Congress now, what are you expecting?
Well, I'm expecting that you'll have all the Republicans voting to reject the deal, and certainly Menendez and Schumer, two Democrats that have come out saying that they're going to vote against, but you would need 2/3 to override a presidential veto. I don't think it's going to get there.
And as far as the region is concerned, what do you expect? I mean, Saudi Arabia has to look at this and get very nervous.
This is the biggest problem, I think, is that if these countries in the region, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE perhaps, feel that Iran is indeed now empowered to have a nuclear program and possibly a nuclear weapon, they may decide to go down that path too. And then you see a nuclearizing Middle East as opposed to one that is eliminating a nuclear program.
Well, it's bad enough over there as it is. Every story coming out of the Middle East from ISIS is just more impossible to believe than the next. Now this Palmyra, this area, they've destroyed the temples, they've beheaded some 82-year-old archaeologist who was studying these things and hanging his body. What is going on over there?
It's part of their ideology that the only thing that matters of history and culture in the Arab world starts with Muhammad. And so anything that predates that, and that is a culture that existed there, that's just what the archaeologists are looking at, that predates Muhammad, they view as a blasphemy, as invalid, and needing to be destroyed. You might remember in Afghanistan, the Taliban did the same thing. They blew off the faces of these statues in Bamiyan, and it's that mentality to destroy all these things.
But how do these kinds of actions actually help ISIS? I mean, who is charmed by this behavior?
It is shocking that some people are. You know, if you look at ISIS today, after a year of bombing, they control more territory and they have just as many fighters, and you have volunteers streaming in from various places who want to wage this religious war and who are believers in that cause, and then go to the most extreme violent acts and extreme violent beliefs in order to pursue that cause. It is working for them.
It's just very hard to
It
believe.
is.
You mentioned acquiring, please.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say, you know, one of the reasons why people are still streaming in is they have this perception that ISIS is succeeding, that ISIS has survived these airstrikes. It is taking territory. And unlike Al-Qaeda, which just wanted to be a terrorist network, ISIS now controls territory, fashions itself as a state, and is authorizing, empowering people to say, join us, recognize the caliphate, and you can be with us. And that has expanded their power considerably.
Is ISIS succeeding, especially in Iraq? Because General John Allen, I think President Obama's top envoy, he was saying ISIS is losing. He was saying they're checked strategically, operationally, and for the most part, tactically. We find out later that this is a little rose-colored glasses action going on.
Yeah, they are in a better position militarily, economically, and controlling territory today than they were a year ago. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be the wave of the future. They may not take over all of Syria or all of Iraq, but we just have to take a snapshot today and 1 year ago. They're stronger, and we better take this into account.
Why are they stronger?
It's partly the Sunni tribes in Iraq and the opposition to Assad in Syria, also Sunni against a Shia leader. And they have collaborated to say, you know what, we'd rather collaborate with ISIS and have Sunni control over this territory than be dominated by a Shia government in Baghdad or by Assad. And so, as violent as it is, that local support has given them space and time, and then they've used it to get money through sales of oil or through raiding some of the equivalent of Federal Reserve banks that they've captured. And they've done very well on the internet and social media, attracting people to the faith of this cause, this ultra-violent Islamist terrorist state.
So with that in mind, we've talked about this before. It's kind of hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys over there. We've just talked about Iran, and we're so worried about their behavior, yet this is a Shia country. They would be natural enemies of ISIS.
And they are. And that's the paradox, is that we are opposing Iran in Syria. They're supporting Assad, and we'd like to see an opposition to Assad successfully stabilize the country because he's killed so many of his own people. They are supporting the government in Baghdad, and our allies are in Baghdad fighting against ISIS. So we're on both sides of this. And so are they.
Well, yeah, it becomes a quagmire. Sending troops to Iraq, American troops to Iraq, is that an option?
It depends who you talk to, because President Obama clearly does not want to do that. And yet, look at how we've gradually increased our airstrikes against ISIS. We've now doing them also from base in Turkey and Incirlik to go at them from the north into Syria. And there is discussion about what kind of spotters do you need, what kind of intelligence and what kind of spotting of targets. And if that requires some ground forces, who would do it? So I don't think there's any desire on the part of the administration to do this right now, but I think there is a sense that what we're doing right now isn't enough.
And what's happening in the Middle East is resulting in just a flood of refugees moving into Europe. Talk to us about that and how that dynamic is.
That is really shocking. The numbers of people who are either coming by land across Turkey or across the Mediterranean into Europe is really staggering. We've seen over 100,000, I believe, so far this year. Estimates it may rise as much as 300,000. And there have been a lot of deaths on the high seas as a result of this. A lot of them are being put up in camps as refugees, and yet they're still coming because they believe these camps are better than the situation that they're leaving behind, whether it's in North Africa or in the Levant, in Syria. The European Union has not figured out how to deal with this. They tried the idea of assigning quotas to each of the EU countries. You accept so many immigrants. Those countries that are not in the south and the east rejected it and said, not us, we're not doing this. You guys have to control this better and keep them out. But the EU has also refused to have a deportation policy or a return them to where they came from policy, meaning that if they get on a boat or if they make it to Greece or Italy, they're being taken care of, and so they're going to keep coming.
And they seem to be heading toward Germany and to, I guess, to a lesser extent, Sweden. But is this more of a challenge for the EU, Europe in general, than the crisis in Greece?
There are different challenges. This migrant thing is big, and it affects publics and it affects perceptions, and they are unwilling to repatriate, and yet the publics are now seeing this great influx of people, and they don't know what to do about it. With Greece, they bought some time at the beginning of the summer by having Greece agree to an austerity package, which then freed up additional financing for Greece to be able to then get money and pay money back. Very little of this money flows into Greece. It's not going to actually change the economy in Greece. The Greek government split over this. They're going to have new elections, and I fear we're going to be right back where we were by October.
My goodness, so things are happening obviously over there. We also, before we get out of here, this attack on this high-speed French train. How did a guy loaded to the teeth get on a train in Belgium? How does that happen?
You don't have the same security controls at the rail stations as you have at the airports. So it is easier for someone to get a weapon and get onto a train like that. They're obviously going to be looking at that now and tightening up a lot. And the other is that we don't know, at least I haven't seen the reports, how did he actually get the weapon onto the train? Was it planted there by someone who's a maintenance worker on the trains? It's quite possible. There is a large Muslim community both in Belgium and in Netherlands, where he presumably boarded, in Amsterdam and in Paris. So there could be a network of support for that.
And again, he was supposed to be on the radar of France and of Belgium.
Spain.
And of Spain. They knew this guy.
Yep.
They knew of this guy. He gets on the plane, on the train, and again, we don't know where the arms were from. But without those Americans and the Britain, I think there was a French guy who also kind of got started on this. Without the help of those people, this could have been a massacre.
It could have been. It really could have been. He had the gun on him. It was loaded. He was prepared to shoot. They saw this and rushed him, which is extraordinary bravery right there from the airmen that did this, and gained control. They were able to knock him down and then to tie him up and prevent any more dangerous shooting. He had not only the gun, but he had one of those box cutters as well, and that caused some severe cuts on the hands of one of these guys and on the neck of one of the other people.
Last question then, everything we've talked about, I'm going to skip the Korean Peninsula because things are actually going well there, comparatively speaking, as opposed to last week.
Well, we were on the brink of war, and it was dicey.
There was artillery fire on both sides, was there not?
Not artillery fire, but arms fire.
Arms fire, okay.
On both sides, and landmines that had gone off that killed some South Korean soldiers, and that was what precipitated this. But the North was not backing down for a while. It was very dangerous.
Why did the North back down?
I think South Korea was very adept in the way they managed this negotiation. They used loudspeaker broadcasting deep into North Korea to create an irritant, and then they negotiated back down from doing that in order to give the North some way to save face. I don't think that Kim Jong-un actually wanted a war, but he wanted to show that he is tough and ready.
So as long as he can show that he's in charge and he's a tough guy, then we can, and the South then held back on those broadcasts, correct?
That's right.
Those things.
That's right.
Well, we did talk about the Korean Peninsula.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's good to have you. Great conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Thursday on Arizona Horizon, Congressman Raul Grijalva will join us in studio, and we'll see how one local company made history with the first 3D printed car. That's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.